Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rewilding Wellness Wednesdays, the space where science, spirit, and soul meet to remind you what it means to live well. Today, we are talking about one of the most misunderstood yet powerful medicines we have: choice. Not the surface level, think positive kind of choice, but the deeper, energetic kind, the kind that shifts frequency, the kind that reminds us we are not helpless in our healing, the kind that whispers, even when your body is aching, even when your heart is heavy, you still get to choose how you meet this moment. This is a conversation I wish someone had with me years ago, back when I thought my feelings ruled me, and when my body was in chaos and my mind was trapped in despair. There was a time when I didn't understand this medicine of choice. I thought my emotions ruled me, that my body was betraying me. But I've since learned that choice is one of the greatest medicines we have. And even when you don't feel well, you can still make the choice to live well. So today, we're going to talk about the science, the soul, and the sovereignty of choice, and how you can live well even when life feels anything but well. This is Rewilding Wellness, a podcast, yes, but more than that, a community, a gathering place, and a movement. Here we come together to remember what it really means to be well in body, mind, spirit, and soul. This is a safe space to listen, to learn, to ask questions, and to share. A place where ancient wisdom and modern science meet, and where we stop trying to fix ourselves and start remembering who we are. Each week we gather not just for information, but for transformation, for connection, because rewilding isn't something we do alone. It's something we are meant to do together. And in doing so, we become part of something bigger than ourselves. We become part of a movement back to wholeness. I am Dr. Christy Vanacore, doctor, medicine woman, author, lyricist, ceremonialist, and prominent trailblazer, offering a different but essential approach known as rewilding wellness for adults, children, teens, and families, utilizing multidimensional and bioquantum practices for holistic healing and thriving. After witnessing the staggering rates of chronic illness in adults and children alike, and the ineffective and disempowering practices of modern traditional medical care, I recognized that it was my life's mission to bring the health and wellness industries back to its roots, to reconnect people with their innate self-healing capacities. So for over 2 decades, my work has integrated mind, body, and spirit, and honors the fact that we are vibrational beings, electrical beings, and that healing can only be birthed from the union of science with soul. As we heal together through frequency, embodiment, cellular recalibration, and regeneration, I guide individuals and families to rediscover their body's brilliance and timeless wisdom so they can realign with the natural synergy of all of creation. I am here to light the way as you remember your roots, rekindle your instincts, and reclaim your sovereignty. So welcome, my beautiful friends. We're going to dive in to the frequency of choice, how to live well, even when you don't feel well. So let's dive right in. So let's start first with a reframe. When we talk about choice, choice is not a forced state. It's actually a frequency. So many of us think of choice as this mental effort, deciding to think positively, deciding to be happy, but that's not what I'm talking about today. Choice is not about pretending. It's actually a scientific way of directing energy. Most of us have been told that we have to force change, but choice is really about directing energy with simply our awareness. So fear, shame, guilt, these are low vibrational states. Gratitude, compassion, and joy are high frequency states. And we have the capacity to shift between them. just by participating in life with awareness. As energy beings, we have three main functions. We are receptors, transmitters, and transmuters. So it is possible to transmute our energy states just with our intention. There's a saying in energy medicine that states that energy flows where attention goes. Stated differently, where your awareness is directed, that is where your energy will flow. So we know enough to know that in life, we cannot control what happens to us, but we can always choose how we meet it, right? So we know every emotion carries a vibration, right? We know these low, dense, contracting, low frequency states of guilt and shame and anger and anxiety, and these higher, more expansive, life-giving, high frequency states, the joy, the gratitude, the compassion, the love, the trust. But we must remember that we influence those vibrational states. Our frequency is more in our control than we've been led to believe. So even when we don't feel our best, we can choose how to move our energy through our system, because energy will always follow intention. This is the laws of science. Where awareness goes, energy flows. Now, this doesn't mean that we bypass pain. No, it means we fully show up and we fully participate in our own healing by choosing how we approach it. It means we fully hold our emotions and we get to choose and decide how we hold them. So this idea of energetic sovereignty, we get to choose how we show up in life. Now, here's what's really fascinating, or at least for me it is, and I'm a little bit of a geek about these things. There is neuroscience behind this, you guys. This is not woo-woo. This is wisdom of science. When you consciously choose, let's say gratitude, or peace, or presence, or love, or compassion, even for 10 seconds, your brain rewires. Neural pathways strengthen around your choice. Dopamine and serotonin levels are impacted. The vagus nerve, which is the longest cranial nerve in the body that connects the mind body, it's the information superhighway between the two. It's the nerve that signals safety or distress. When we make the choice to remain in those higher frequency states, the vagus nerve signals safety instead of stress and danger. So using nothing but your awareness, you can literally shift your biology. And this is what scientists will often refer to this as state-dependent neuroplasticity. Many of us have heard of that expression of neuroplasticity. But this state-dependent, we have the capacity to shift our biology. Our choices in any given moment also shape the future baseline that we show up with. So every time we make the choice to choose calm over chaos, every time we choose compassion over criticism, you are actively choosing to build new nervous system patterns. You're teaching your body, this is what safety feels like. This is what it feels like to live well, regardless of what's happening around you. That you have the capacity through your choice, through the direction of your awareness, to influence dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, cortisol in your body. So choice is not this abstract mental capacity. It's actually a bioelectrochemical process. It's your brain, your body, and your energy fields aligning toward coherence. So I want to share something personal here. You guys know that I always share my story because I think it's important that this information that I share, yes, I'm a doctor, but these are not theories for me. I live these practices. And many of you have read my first book, Rewilding: A Woman's Quest to Remember Her Roots, Rekindle Her Instincts, and Reclaim Her Sovereignty. That was my memoir, my life story of how I healed myself when no one else could. So, if you've read that book, some of my past experiences with chronic illness. But, we're cyclical beings and our body is always moving in and out of balance. It's just nature's way. And over the past year, I've been walking through another dimension of my health journey. I've been navigating things like mold toxicity, low ferritin and iron, mitochondrial depletion, that all of which creates such profound cellular fatigue that sinks in my bones. And there are days when my energy voltage feels so low that it's hard to stand, literally. I don't feel radiant or strong or vibrant. And yet, what I've learned on my path is that I still get to choose. My power of choice doesn't go away. I can choose to live well, even in those moments when I am so strained and drained. I can choose to go outside to meet the morning sunrise that I know my mitochondria need. I can choose to drum and sing, even ever so softly, to use the power of vibrational medicine and vocal resonance. I can choose to nourish my body with nutrients that I know my body can handle and crave. I can choose to see and find beauty in the day, even when I'm so tired and I can't even keep my eyes open. So I've learned that living well doesn't mean feeling perfect. It means showing up with presence, integrity, and awareness in every moment. Living well is not about how you feel. It's about how you meet yourself where you're at. So, of course, I have hard days, but I no longer abandon myself such that I allow those days and I allow the energy around me to consume me. I become a master of my own bioenergetics, beginning with my choice. So I ask myself, I ask this at the beginning of the day, throughout the day, what frequency do I want to embody? How do I want to show up today? And that is where I align all of my intention and my efforts. Because even when I can't do everything, I can still choose something. And I am still responsible for how I show up in the world. It's not up to anybody else. It's not, well, if everybody likes me today and I, get all the green lights on the way to school drop off, or if my tea tastes good, or, if things work out in my favor and the sun is shining, then I'll have a good day and I'll show up well. No, I choose how I will show up every day. My frequency is my responsibility. Now, listen, friends, let's be real. I get that there are going to be days when this choice that I'm referring to feels downright impossible. I know that. I know that you will have days when trauma, pain, or chronic stress will hijack your system so much that even the idea of choosing joy actually feels hard and oppressive and offensive. I get that. I do. I've been there many times. And the thing about that is that choice doesn't always feel accessible when your system is stuck in survival mode, right? So when you're in flight or fight or freeze or fawn, and your system's not being stubborn, your system is not working against you. It's actually being protective of you. Here's the truth. Your nervous system will not allow you to rise in frequency until it believes you are safe. So therefore, sometimes the only choice and the first choice that you need to make is to reclaim safety, to soften, to take a breath, to stop judging yourself for feeling low, to rest instead of resist. This is all still a choice. And it's one of the most courageous choices that you can make. To come back to safety, time and time again. This is how we reclaim our sovereignty of choice and sovereignty over our emotions. If you tuned in to this podcast last week, you know that I spoke about emotions as energy in motion, right? That they're not problems to solve, they're just currents of energy to move. And this episode today really builds on that, because while emotions can arise spontaneously, feelings are shaped by interpretation. And if you missed last week's episode, go back and check it out on my YouTube channel. So while emotions arise spontaneously, they are sensory experiences of energy moving or pooling in the body. But feelings, sad, anxious, depressed, jealous, overwhelmed, those are feelings that are shaped by the mind's interpretation of those inherently neutral sensations in the body. And if you can learn to intercept that moment before the mind names the emotion and calls it a feeling, you can stay in movement instead of stagnation. So, for example, you feel tightness in your chest, right? This idea of maybe tightness or heaviness in your chest. That's a sensation that is benign. It's neither positive or negative. It just is. Before your mind jumps in and calls that sadness or grief or brokenness, you pause. You feel your feet on the earth. You feel the sky above your crown. You take a breath. You bring a hand to your chest. Feel the vibration. Be there with the sensation. That's a choice. There's your sovereignty. To pause and be with the body. Be with the emotion before your mind takes over and interprets it by labeling it a feeling that then in turn you have a story about. Once the mind calls this sadness and grief, well, now you're in a narrative about it. And now that consumes you. And now your freedom of choice is gone. At that point, you are now consumed by your feelings, right? But if you can pause, stay in the body, watch the sensation, well, now you redirect the energy and you protect your frequency. Okay, remember, the mind interprets, the body expresses, but you are awareness. You are pure awareness. So you get to decide how you will meet these experiences. Right? I want to share an example now from a client story. And you guys know I always get permission to share my client stories. So this beautiful soul, I'm going to call her Michelle. Michelle came to me after years of talk therapy, psychotherapy, talk therapy. Michelle is brilliant, successful, deeply aware. She is so skilled. We say she has an honorary psychology degree. She can analyze every root cause, all of her childhood dynamics, perfectionism, her patterns of fear and rejection, her patterns of running away from men to not get too close. She can articulate all of this. And yet, she still can't change her reactions to things. And so every time she feels or felt misunderstood at work or, unseen by a partner or in some kind of argument with one of her children, she would spiral into this whole thing of like self-doubt, anxiety, and shutdown. And so when Michelle first came to me, she said, I don't know why I do this, but I can't stop. It's almost like my own emotions hijack me. Those were her words. So that's when we started doing this work together, this multidimensional wellness work that starts with the body up, not the mind down. And we began with safety first, getting her system to feel safe, teaching her system that it could tolerate the discomfort of being misunderstood without it needing to go into collapse, right? That pattern where she shuts down, that's nervous system collapse. That's the way her system was wired to deal with situations that she believed were too uncomfortable and intolerable. So just getting her to see it intellectually couldn't change it. We needed to use somatic work, body work, breath work, vibrational work, sound medicine to help her feel the energy of an emotion and be with it in her body before labeling it as a problem. And we did this work consistently, and she dove into it because she was fed up. She knew she needed a different way, so she was motivated. And one day she came in and said, this week, I was in a board meeting and my boss completely dismissed an idea that I had in front of everyone. And she said, I felt this usual surge deep in my chest. But instead of spiraling, I paused, felt my feet on the earth, allowed my crown to rise to the sky, let my belly soften. I found my breath, tuned into the sensation, this surging heaviness, tightness in my chest, and I watched it. And I stayed present. And I chose to be a witness of this. And that was the moment that Michelle began to reclaim her sovereignty. She didn't quit her job or ask for a new boss. She didn't change her past, right? She couldn't go back and rewrite the script on her childhood. And she also didn't regulate or expand the capacity of her nervous system overnight. All she did was make a choice to respond instead of react, to meet the scenario differently. And it was that choice that changed her frequency. Right? So this is what this healing work looks like. Because understanding intellectually, that alone can't shift you. It's helpful. It can expand your consciousness, but that alone isn't enough to rewire patterns and get you to execute differently in your life. But awareness paired with embodied safety absolutely can. So choice, freedom of choice, is the bridge between the knowledge and the transformation. Okay, I want to tell you another story, this time about a child. So a 9-year-old boy who I work with, he came to me after several years of emotional outbursts and anxiety He was a super bright, curious, really sensitive kid, the kind of kid who feels everything really deeply. By the time he came to me, his parents had tried everything. They took him to traditional talk therapy, play therapists, cognitive behavioral therapists. They used behavioral charts at home and at school. They used mindfulness apps. And the thing is this, I'm going to call him Jeremy. Jeremy understood all of the rules, all of the intellectual, conceptual knowing about calming down. But in the moments when push came to shove and his body was flooded with emotion, none of those strategies worked. He couldn't access them. Because in those moments, it's not that his nervous system was misbehaving or doing something wrong. It was working to protect him. So he wasn't being defiant. He wasn't not using the tools and the strategies. His body was in survival mode. And therapists of the past would simply ask him to sit and talk about his feelings. And he could do that. He was bright enough to do that. But that could not move the dial on what was happening deep in his bioenergetics and his physiology. So instead of sitting and talking about his feelings, we had to move. We did somatic work, moving the body, opening up the cells, muscles, joints, tissues, getting into the fascia. Something he also loved is we use rhythm. So frame drums, djembe drums, castanets, sitting cross-legged from each other and saying, let's just play what your body is experiencing right now. So that when the beats are chaotic and fast and loud and erratic, it's mirroring what's happening inside of him, and he can be a witness to it and not make it go away. And then as his breathing slows and the rhythm softens, his body shifts so he can see it outside of himself and then begin to embody it. So we didn't just sit and talk for an hour each week about his anger or his fear. We moved it. We embodied the medicine. I showed him that he had a choice, that his rhythm was on him. It was his choice. It was his decision. And that is ridiculously empowering, particularly for a child who often feels they have no choice in life. So over time, Jeremy learned that this idea of choice, this freedom of choice, isn't about words or rules. It was about energy mastery. So he learned how to notice what was happening inside of him. And he was able to meet it with rhythm and breath and presence and awareness. This is what this emotional sovereignty looks like in a child. We don't try to control his emotions. We allow him to move with it and be in this beautiful state of awareness, helping him learn that he is pure awareness, right? So that's Jeremy's story. And again, the same work that I do with adults, whether Michelle at the age of 49 or Jeremy at the age of 9, right? It's just spoken in a different language because the nervous system doesn't even speak in words. The nervous system communicates in rhythm, in tone, in breath, in safety. So that healing begins when the body remembers it has a choice. It can make the choice to slow the rhythm down, to release the charge, to restore coherence. So this idea of choice is a practice. It's a daily devotion. It's not a single decision. It's every moment, moment to moment. How do I want to show up in this moment? How will I live well today? Not how will I fix myself, but how can I embody wellness? That might mean lying on the grass for 5 minutes with your face up towards the sun. It might mean letting yourself have ugly, snotty crying episode instead of pretending those feelings aren't there. It might mean saying no or slowing down or turning your phone off to just have some time without distraction. These are choices that change your frequency. They may not seem so glamorous, but they are ridiculously powerful. Living well is not something you do, it's something you choose to be. And when we learn how to show up and bear witness to the emotion in the body, we reclaim this power. Then we rise in frequency, not because life gets easier, but because we are more aligned. That's how we rise in frequency. That is how we elevate our vibration. So, as we prepare to close today, I invite you now to take a pause with me. Let's take one deep conscious breath together. First, feeling your feet on the earth, feeling the crown of your head reaching for the sky, feeling your heart beating, maybe even placing your left hand on your heart, feeling the pulsing, maybe placing the other hand on your belly and feeling your power. Even when your body feels weary, your consciousness, your capacity for choice is always there. It's always luminous. Today and always, may you remember that you have choice, not to fix, not to force, but to realign, to rise, to soften, to live well. This moment, right here, right now, this is your place of power. This is the place where you get to decide, not to deny what is, but to rise with it. To remember that even if your voltage is low, your light is still shining bright. It does not become extinguished. You are an ever-living field of energy, capable of shifting, rising, aligning, moment by moment. This, my beautiful friends, is your medicine. This is the rhythm of rewilding well. It's rooted, it's rhythmic, and it's real. Thank you for showing up for yourself today and joining me for another time together for rewilding wellness. Until next time, have a beautiful day, and I'm sending you so much love.